Did you know most people believe self-discipline is the highest virtue of success, the iron rule that separates the weak from the strong, the dreamers from the doers? They imagine discipline as a clean, sharp blade cutting through distraction, laziness, and fear. Wake up early, work harder, say no to pleasure, endure pain. This mantra echoes through motivational speeches, productivity videos, and self-help books like A Sacred Gospel. But what if this is fundamentally misguided? What if what we call self-discipline is not strength, but another mask of control? A subtle form of fear, disguised as virtue. What if your obsession with discipline is not making you free, but quietly turning you into your own tyrant? In this video, we are going to uncover a truth that modern culture has almost forgotten: that discipline without awareness is not mastery, but slavery. We'll explore why so many people who succeed through relentless discipline end up empty, anxious, and disconnected from themselves. And we'll ask a harder question: what if true discipline has nothing to do with force and everything to do with alignment? Carl Jung once wrote that what you resist not only persists, it grows stronger. In other words, when you fight your impulses blindly, you do not overcome them. You feed them in the dark. And this is where the paradox begins. Self-discipline promises freedom. Yet how many of us live like prisoners of our own routines, terrified of rest, haunted by guilt when we stop? Have you ever felt that your entire sense of worth depended on how productive you were? That if you fail to meet your own impossible standard, you deserve shame? This is not discipline, it is domination. And domination, even when self-imposed, is still a form of bondage. But there is another way. A way that does not kill desire, but transforms it. A way that does not demand constant punishment, but teaches intelligent restraint. Through this journey, we will dive into the deeper layers of what Jung called the shadow of willpower, the hidden motives beneath our need for control. You'll see how self-discipline can evolve from a weapon of repression into a path of integration, where strength and softness coexist, and where control is replaced by consciousness. By the end, you'll understand why forcing yourself to be disciplined often backfires, and how true power begins not with resistance, but with recognition. Because in the end, discipline is not about conquering yourself. It's about meeting yourself fully and acting from that awareness. That is the truth about self-discipline, and it's far more radical than anyone dares to admit. To understand the truth about self-discipline, we must first strip it of its illusions. Discipline at its core is not about suppression. It is the art of relationship between desire and direction, between impulse and intention. But most people turn this relationship into a battlefield. They believe they must conquer their weaker self, as if two enemies live inside one mind, the master and the slave. This illusion of control creates what Jung might have called an inner tyranny. The ego sits on a fragile throne, constantly cracking the whip against its own instincts, terrified of losing authority. But this fear-based discipline does not create strength. It breeds exhaustion. Imagine a man standing guard over his own emotions, sword drawn day and night, mistaking vigilance for virtue. Eventually, he collapses not from defeat, but from the unbearable weight of self-surveillance. This is what many modern people call productivity. They live in a self-imposed prison where rest feels like guilt and silence feels like failure. But true self-discipline in its pure form is not the enemy of desire. It is its sculptor. Like an artist shaping marble, discipline gives form to energy, not by fighting it, but by guiding it. Have you ever found yourself forcing motivation, yet feeling nothing but emptiness? Have you noticed how the more you command yourself to focus, the more your attention rebels? That's because you are trying to dominate what can only be directed. The psyche is not a soldier. It is a living ecosystem. And discipline must become its gardener, not its dictator. In love, we see this too. People try to discipline their hearts to stop caring, to suppress vulnerability, to manage affection like a checklist. Yet the heart always resist tyranny. In the workplace, people speak of grind culture as if human worth were measured by exhaustion. They forget that even the sun sets to restore its fire. In family life, parents confuse discipline with control, punishing emotion instead of guiding it. And in doing so, they teach their children not strength but fear. Real discipline arises from listening, not forcing. It is a dialogue with one's own shadow, where awareness becomes the true authority. This awareness is what transforms impulse into intention. When you see the roots of your laziness, you no longer need to fight it. You understand it. Perhaps it's not laziness but fatigue, not weakness but a signal that your path no longer aligns with your nature. This is where conscious discipline begins, not from the command to do more, but from the wisdom to do what matters. Like a river that flows naturally toward the sea, authentic discipline is effortless once you know its direction. When self-discipline becomes blind obedience, it mutates into something dangerous. It turns from a bridge into a cage. The body may look strong, the schedule full, the achievements impressive, but inside a quiet erosion begins. You lose the ability to feel joy without justification. Every moment must be earned. Every rest must be defended. The self becomes a machine whose only acceptable state is on. Jung warned that what we repress does not disappear. It waits. And when discipline is used to repress, the shadow grows fat in silence. The man who denies his impulses does not destroy them. He feeds them with shame. The woman who forces herself into endless control eventually breaks in secret, through addiction, burnout, or quiet despair. Have you ever met someone who appears perfectly disciplined but radiates no life? Their posture straight, their schedule flawless, their words precise, but their eyes are tired, their laughter rare, their presence hollow. That is the face of over-disciplined living. It's not health, it's imprisonment, disguised as order. Nietzsche once wrote, "Beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. Replace monsters with weakness, and the warning becomes terrifyingly relevant. In trying to defeat our undisciplined self, we often become crueler than the chaos we sought to control. This cruelty is internalized as self-hatred. It whispers, "You are never enough." It demands perfection, then punishes the smallest imperfection. And so the modern individual, armed with endless productivity tools and motivational slogans, becomes both the prisoner and the jailer of their own psyche. This is not theory. This is survival. The cost of misunderstanding discipline is not abstract. It's emotional collapse, relationship decay, spiritual numbness. Families fracture under the weight of impossible expectations. Lovers drift apart because one partner treats intimacy like a task. Parents raise children who mistake anxiety for ambition. The culture rewards this pathology, calling it excellence. But what kind of excellence destroys the soul it's meant to refine? The problem is not discipline itself, but its contamination by fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of insignificance. Fear is a poor teacher. It motivates through threat, not vision. And so discipline driven by fear always seeks external validation. You run faster not because you love running, but because someone might outrun you. You work harder not because you believe in the work, but because rest feels like sin. Over time, this constant self-surveillance erodes your inner compass. You no longer know what you want. You only know what you must avoid: guilt, shame, failure. This is the opposite of freedom. And without freedom, discipline becomes decay. The philosopher Dostoevsky said, "If you wish to be respected by others, the great thing is to respect yourself." True discipline should be born from that self-respect, not self-rejection. But as long as you mistake punishment for progress, you will keep tightening your own chains, mistaking them for purpose. The tragedy is not that people are undisciplined. It's that they are disciplined for the wrong reasons. So how do we escape this paradox? How do we transform discipline from tyranny into liberation? The journey begins with recognition. Recognition means seeing the unconscious motives behind your discipline, the fear of being worthless, the craving for control, the hunger for approval. When you bring these motives into light, they lose their power. Observation follows. Observation is not judgment, it's awareness in motion. You begin to notice your patterns. The moment guilt creeps in, when you rest the subtle anxiety, when you slow down the need to prove your worth through suffering. Observation breaks identification. You realize I am not my impulses, but I am also not my repression. From here begins the sacred stage Jung called integration. Integration is the art of befriending your own contradictions. Instead of silencing desire, you learn to negotiate with it. You don't destroy laziness, you understand its message. You don't kill comfort, you redefine it as renewal. Through integration, self-discipline evolves into self-dialogue, a balance between order and spontaneity, between structure and surrender. It is not the soldier's march, but the monk's silence. True discipline is not cold. It is warm, alive, intelligent. It is the ability to align your actions with your deeper values, not out of fear, but devotion. When this happens, something extraordinary unfolds. The energy once wasted in internal conflict becomes creativity. Your focus sharpens, but it feels effortless. Your will strengthens, but it is kind. You begin to embody what Jung described as authentic authority, a power that doesn't dominate but radiates. This is the essence of silent power, doing what must be done without violence toward yourself. It's the difference between a clenched fist and an open hand. In that openness lies inner freedom, the rarest and most disciplined state of all. Because when you act from awareness, you no longer need to force. You flow. You no longer obey. You participate. The ultimate truth about self-discipline is this. It's not about control, but connection to your values, your energy, your life. The next time you hear a voice commanding you to be stronger, listen deeper. Ask, from love or from fear? Your answer will tell you everything. If this message resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. What has discipline meant in your life? Control or freedom? Subscribe for more reflections like this, and remember, the greatest strength is to know when to soften.